the mistake which the government did is, I would say, two. Number one is that instead of empathizing with the student and their demand, or at least giving them a year to hear what the grievances are, the government completely neglected that. Probably the government was overconfident. Second is that on the one hand, you are not actually hearing what the grievances are, what exactly the students want, how to resolve this particular issue of the quota system. The government, in fact, said that, gave a very provocative statement by Sheikh Hasina, who said that if I am not going to give reservation to those people who fought liberation and their children, am I going to give reservation to the Rajakar? Now, in the Bangladesh context, it's a very pejorative term.
Hello, this is Track News Global. You watching The Gist, and I'm Tripti Nath. I'm very pleased to have in the studio today Dr. Smruti S. Pattanaik, a research fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, New Delhi. Her area of specialization is South Asia. Dr. Pattanaik has been a recipient of many international fellowships. She was a visiting Asia Fellow at the Department of International Relations, Dhaka University in 2004 and in 2007, researching on politics of identity in Bangladesh. She's lectured on foreign policy in many universities in India and abroad, including Dhaka University. Dr. Pattanaik was also the course director of the India-Bangladesh Studies program jointly conducted by Jamia Millia Islamia and Dhaka University. Welcome to the show, Dr. Pattanaik. I'm sure you know what we're going to talk about today. You've been tracking Bangladesh very closely for many years. Surely you would have a lot to say about the circumstances in which Sheikh Hasina had to step down from the post of the Prime Minister on August 5 and flee the country. Do you think her ouster could have been avoided?
I think when the student movement started, especially after the verdict of High Court Division of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, which cancelled the 2018 circular, which had basically lifted, there was no reservation, amended the reservation of 56%, and 30% is reserved for offsprings of those people, who fought for Bangladesh's liberation in 1971. So when it cancelled the circular, then the student took to the street and they were agitated because, as all of us we know, for many in the entire region, government jobs are the only way for economic upliftment, getting social status, because many things are associated with the government job. It is permanent, you are working for the government, so that has many benefits. So obviously the only way to climb on the socio-economic ladder is the government job. So when this quota system was basically after the High Court's decision, when this quota system was declared that it has to stay, you can't abolish the quota system, the student took the street, and at that point of time the government made an appeal to the Supreme Court, but it was supposed to be heard on 3rd of August. But the student continued with that strike, and what actually, the mistake which the government did is, I would say, two. Number one is that instead of empathizing with the student and their demand, or at least giving them a year to hear what the grievances are, the government completely neglected that. Probably the government was overconfident. Second is that on the one hand, you are not actually hearing what the grievances are, what exactly the students want, how to resolve this particular issue of the quota system. The government, in fact, said that, gave a very provocative statement by Sheikh Hasina, who said that if I am not going to give reservation to those people who fought liberation and their children, am I going to give reservation to the Rajakar? Now, in the Bangladesh context, it's a very pejorative term. In a sense, Rajakar means those people who collaborated with the Pakistan regime at that point of time. So therefore, when he said, I can't give reservation to the children of Rajakar, the student thought that, you are terming us as Rajakar.
Which is a very politically incorrect
statement. Politically very incorrect statement. So that actually inflamed the students' passion initially. Of course, they gave slogan that who are you, who are my, Rajakar and Rajakar. And then probably advised by some of the civil society members that this is, you should not claim that you are Rajakar, you change the slogan. So they changed the slogan to saying that I went to demand for my right, but instead I was termed as Rajakar. And second thing which inflamed this entire student protest is, a statement by Obaidul Qadir, the General Secretary of Awami League. He said that, our student league, the Chhatra League, is more than enough to set the student right, in a sense, almost telling them to indulge in violence with the student. And practically, both the Chhatra League as well as the police, they collaborated, and the students were beaten up, they were pushed, some people were shot. So therefore, you saw 6 students in the initial phase of the movement, they got shot, and one of them was Abu Said. And I think Abu Said symbolized 2 things. One is that he comes from a very poor family, a family of 13 children, the only person who has done the university level, from his family. So therefore, in a sense, the entire family's aspiration was with Abu Said, that actually he embodied that kind of aspiration which all the middle class wanted. Second is the defiance of Abu Said, going straight, standing, he's opening his arms with the Bangladesh flag and almost in a defiance facing the police. And the police shot him dead. And that probably was the beginning of what I said was completely wrong decision on the part of Sheikh Hasina. She tried to correct, do some course correction in terms of asking the student for a dialogue and preponing the Supreme Court hearing, which was scheduled for August 3rd. And he preponed it, and she preponed it, and the Supreme Court gave a verdict that there will be only 7% reservation, not 56% as it was before. So 93 was for merit. So therefore, the student demanded that the cases which has been filed against the student leaders, that must be withdrawn. They had a 10-point demand. Just major 3 are, they should be released. Those people who perpetrated violence against the student should be brought to book. And they gave a deadline, and she did not even listen to that. So that actually magnified the crisis.
So basically, this was actually my second question, but you've covered it so well. So from what I can make out, you're saying that the government should have not flexed their muscles. Instead, they should have done what they did later.
Yeah.
And the remedial measures that they took later were a little too late in the day.
Yes.
And now I hear that I think over 500 people have been killed, 230 in the last week alone. The casualties are huge, so are the number of people who've been wounded.
Yes.
And the other thing is India is of course deeply concerned over the attacks on defenseless Hindu minorities and destruction of their homes and businesses in 45 out of the 64 districts. 2 Hindu leaders have also been killed. And our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed hope for protection of Hindus as Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus took charge as head of Bangladesh's interim government recently. And sources in the Indian government have been quoted as saying that safety of minorities is important duty by the government in office. So the killing of Bangladesh, Hindus in Bangladesh and desecration of Hindu temples in Bangladesh have also led to protests across the globe, from the crisis-hit country to the United States. What is the way out?
I would say that obviously I think it is a right approach asking the interim regime in Bangladesh to protect the minorities of their country. After all, they are citizens of Bangladesh, so it is a duty of Bangladesh government to protect them. Many people actually consider this as a kind of reprisal attack on not just the Hindus but also the Awami League supporters. Some of them are Awami League supporters, but this is something also is presumed that all the Hindus support Awami League. There are substantial Hindu who also support the BNP. In fact, BNP has few Hindu leaders who are member of the presidium. So therefore, this thing is that Hindu is equal, Hindu means Awami League is a very kind of misperception which has been spread across. And second thing is that as India said, you see two kind of pictures in Bangladesh. On the one hand, you see people attacking Hindu temples, the houses of the Hindus. Some of them are torched, and also some of the Hindu houses have been demolished, attacked. So when you see on one hand there are people who are attacking, on the other hand there are also some of the element, especially the students who have gone out to protect the houses, the temples from being attacked. So the student, I would say the student leaders who were at the forefront of the movement initially are the people who do not want the ideal of this particular movement. They did not wanted this to degenerate into a kind of communal violence, where the basic focus of this particular movement, return to democracy, especially because the manner in which Hasina handled the protest should get the priority rather than government getting diverted into this kind of thing. So you have on the one hand organized groups attacking, on the other hand you have student groups who are trying to protect. But it is true that there is massive violence against the minorities, and that cannot be justified just because they are a supporter of a particular party or the sympathizer of a particular party, or just because attack in the past on the Hindu minorities has happened during various periods. Because like for example, I have seen some people justifying this attack saying that during Awami League's regime also there was attack on Hindus. No, it is not a justification. After all, this particular student movement is for a better Bangladesh, a Bangladesh that is ruled by law, a Bangladesh that is non-discriminatory, a Bangladesh that is supposed to be democratic or on a path to the revival of democracy. So therefore, you cannot compare it with the past. A second thing I would also like to argue is this, that for example, when these attacks are happening, it was very much known that such attack will happen.
Right.
So in a sense, when like for example after 2001 election, when BNP got elected, the Hindu houses and the Awami League supporters were attacked. So therefore, if those people who are arguing that in the past it has happened, then therefore it is, I think, essential, considering that such kind of attack is anticipated, I think protection should have been given. I think they could have better managed anticipating this kind of attack, and I saw nothing was done. Yes, I understand the police force had left because police force was collaborating with the ruling regime. So obviously they anticipated attack against them. So many of them, they left the police post, and they went into hiding. But the army was there. The BGB was there.
So basically,
why protection was not given?
There was very little importance given to human life.
Yes, I would say that. If this movement is built on the death of, as you said, more than 500 people, then this movement should have been more careful because of the ideal it stood for and the transformation it aspires. If you aspire for a particular kind of transformation, then you probably, I think that it was needed that measures would have taken for the protection of the minorities, and those people, let the rule of law prevail. Let them be arrested, whoever was involved in corruption, whoever was involved. So you are doing exactly what you are accusing Hasina of. Trial without procedure, without law, arrest, disappearance, everything which is beyond law. Now the same thing, how can you justify the same thing happening? It is supposed to be a different Bangladesh.
Also, Smruti, the manner in which Bangladesh Chief Justice and the Bangladesh Bank Governor had to resign within 5 days of Hasina's ouster speaks volumes of the mess Bangladesh is in. What would you have to say about that?
True. In fact, there were protests because they were seen as supporters of Hasina. So there is this belief that you cannot rule the country, or you cannot get into a path of democracy and rule of law if you have the same people in positions who have been before. That actually reminds me of 1972, when many of the people who were managing the Pakistan administration during the liberation war and were not unable to join the liberation movement, Mujib had that point of time forgiven everyone and had inducted. He said, this is the time of reconciliation. And compared to that, what I see is that these people are asked to leave because of corruption, because of that politically appointed, and there is this argument that if we are going to restructure the institutions, which was completely undermined by the the Awami League, then you would like these people to leave.
Right. So Sheikh Hasina is not very far from where we are sitting right now. She's been provided a safe sanctuary in India. And in a recent statement shared by her son, Sanjay Wazid, who's very active, she's demanded punishment for those involved in killing and acts of vandalism during the anti-quota protests. She's also appealed to the people in Bangladesh to observe the National Mourning Day on 15th August. Which marks the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, founder of Bangladesh, and her father. Do you think the people will observe the National Mourning Day?
Actually, National Mourning Day always used to be a holiday in Bangladesh. So the interim regime has said that they will not observe a holiday tomorrow, but also at the same time, there is no clear instruction whether it will be observed. Maybe the party members will observe it. Maybe some of the civil society members who were part of the liberation war probably observe it, because Mujibur Rahman has certain stature. After all, he was the person who fought for the liberation of Bangladesh,
right,
along with other leaders. So therefore, it's not very clear. The government, the interim government till now has not given any kind of instruction that don't observe this as a national mourning day. So probably I think they have left it to whoever wants to observe it.
So what will be the key challenges before Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus? I've seen your picture with him, and who came back from Paris on the request of the protesters to take charge as head of the interim government.
I think Bangladesh faces multiple challenges at this moment. One is that, of course, restoring law and order, which I think Bangladesh is getting back to normal after appeal by the new police chief, IGP of Bangladesh. He appealed to the police forces who have left their post to come back. I think till day before, out of 633 police posts, police stations, 520 something or 30 something have resumed functioning. I'm sure the rest of them must have functioned. I see the police managing the traffic in Bangladesh. So therefore, slowly it is getting back to normal. So that is number one. I think law and order machinery should function as it needs to function in normal circumstances, because all this violence, vandalism happened when the police left their post, Hasina, after Hasina left. Second challenge would be that the foreign exchange reserves have reduced, and Bangladesh government has taken 4.5 billion, if I'm not mistaken, from the IMF. So the effort will be, how to see that the growth rate does not fall. The confidence of the investor in Bangladesh should not reduce. Third, I would see, and which is, I would say, though I say it as third, it is the utmost priority is to move towards holding election. So for that, the interim regime needs to hold consultation with various political parties, including Awami League. I'm saying this because Awami League is the oldest party in Bangladesh, born in 1949. So therefore, you cannot have any kind of election without Awami League. You may not want Sheikh Hasina, that's a different issue. But as a political party, I don't think you can hold the entire political party responsible to what omission and commission which Hasina did. So the need to get into a kind of dialogue and hold election as soon as possible, and let the legitimately elected political entity to deal with the law and order situation, the crime, the corruption which happened in the past many years.
Sure, but Smruti, we should also keep in mind that Muhammad Yunus is now 84, and it's going to be super challenging for him to rebuild institutions which take decades. And as the world saw, the interim government formation was very hurried. Yunus has already announced the portfolios of 14 of the 17 Council of Advisors, and many of them are Hasina's critics. So, do you think this interim government will succeed in carrying day-to-day activities of governance till such time the elections are held, and they'll be able to do it effectively?
See, the interim government is backed by the army. We should not forget that context where the army in its address to the nation very clearly said they're going to put in place an interim regime. The roadmap to the election is not yet announced. Obviously, this is not the time to restructure the economy. This is the time to have an elected government in place. So therefore, I would say that those long-term restructuring needs to be done. But then again, the restructuring will not sustain unless until it becomes a part of political culture. Because we saw a lot of restructuring happening between 2007 and 8 when the military-backed caretaker government was there. And yet by 2014 you saw the degeneration in Bangladesh's democracy. So therefore, having an institution in place and all doesn't ensure that there will not be any kind of degeneration of this institution. I think it has a lot to do with the culture, with the society, the kind of democratic watchdog you have, and party's own commitment to democracy, I would say that.
Right. What do you think would be the future that the Rohingyas can foresee in Bangladesh now under the interim government?
I don't think the interim government is going to focus on Rohingyas at present, because the negotiation with Myanmar, the Chinese brokered negotiation, few meetings have taken place, but the Rohingyas have made it clear that they will not return to Myanmar unless until there is reform in Myanmar, especially their status as citizens. Now that actually is the internal matter of Myanmar. So I really do not know whether Bangladesh is in a position to influence that internal change in Myanmar. So I really do not see the return of Rohingyas for the time being. So as far as the interim regime is concerned, I really don't think they would get into this aspect
right now. We talked of investors. You mentioned investors. How can Bangladesh raise the morale of the investors? Because this is something that is uppermost on minds of many countries who have invested a lot in Bangladesh, including India and even Japan. I think the Japanese ambassador to Bangladesh met Sheikh Hasina only a few days, I think less than a week, maybe 8 days before all this happened. And I think he expressed his willingness to support Bangladesh provided things are done in a proper order. And the Japanese have also invested hugely in the metro rail in Dhaka, and much of that has also been vandalized. So how do you think they can restore investor confidence?
I think once there is restoration of law and order within Bangladesh, probably that will, and at least if the interim government is able to announce a schedule for the election, how many months and all, that actually will let the investor have a kind of roadmap. Okay, the election is happening after 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, then accordingly you prioritize your investment. So I think for the time being it will be very, very cautious, because already you have put money, things are very uncertain, you would not like to put more money. As you said, the Japanese have not only invested in the metro rail, the Matarbari port was also coming up in a very, very big way, apart from the Paira port. So therefore I think both India and Japan have invested. The Chinese also have invested in Bangladesh. So Therefore, I would say that the Russians are having the nuclear power plant. So there's many countries who have invested in Bangladesh for a very long time. So obviously they would look into political stability, because your investment will not be secured unless until you have political stability. So currently it appears to be stabilizing, but we really do not know what is going to happen.
Right. Bangladesh is facing a severe economic crisis. You touched upon it fleetingly, and inflation is touching an all-time high. It touched an all-time high in 12 years at 11.66% in July. Do you think with an economist steering the interim government, it will be easier to help Bangladesh come out of the economic crisis?
See, it is always a long road when you are speaking of economic recovery. We have seen the context of Sri Lanka. It almost took 2 years to bring the Sri Lankan economy back to normal. So in the context of Bangladesh, I would say that definitely they would try to have the investor confidence. They would try to get the remittances, which is one of the major source of Bangladesh's forex reserve. They would like to continue with the RMG, export. And we must remember, much of the raw material also goes from India, because Bangladesh's import from India is nearly $12 to $13 billion. So therefore, we need to see that the trade has resumed in India-Bangladesh border. I do not see any hurdle being created saying that the trade needs to be stalled, that kind of thing. So therefore, I would say that if the government is able to maintain its export to various countries, especially RMG, which is a major source of foreign exchange, and investor confidence, I think they will do well. Economic recovery takes quite a bit of time, and I'm sure given the right kind of direction, they will make economic recovery.
Okay, so we were talking of the economic crisis, and I think things are going to be very challenging, and I also wanted to understand from you about political continuity of some initiatives that the Indian government took. For instance, not too long back, the Indian government announced that they'll be issuing medical e-visas to Bangladeshis who want to come to India, and you had told me once there's lots and lots of Bangladeshis who come to India for medical treatment. So do you think that will be taken up again? Those kind of initiatives are very welcome in Bangladesh.
So, as per the media report goes, the Indian High Commission has, when the issuing of the visa had stopped, in a limited way it has started since yesterday, and it was stopped taking into consideration the law and order.
Right.
So once the visa, processing of visa is normalized, the entire visa processing unit starts with its entire strength. The visas will be issued. So therefore, I don't think the government has a policy to roll back any kind. The Indian government has not announced any rollback in its visa policy, and the largest visa is provided to Bangladeshis anywhere in the world as far as India is concerned. So there is no setback to that particular visa policy. It is going to continue. I don't think there is any reconsideration of discontinuing with the medical visas.
Right. So my last question, Smruti, is about the lawlessness in Bangladesh and the situation arising out of the lawlessness, which has badly discredited Bangladesh, in the Committee of Nations, and many countries have advised, we saw, their citizens to avoid non-essential travel to Bangladesh. So that's also a setback. How do you look at it?
I think yes, initially when the student protest was getting violent, the Indian government evacuated Indian students,
right,
including some of the Nepalese students also who were studying in Bangladesh. So the students are yet to return back and resume their studies as the school and colleges are being opened. So I would say that the travel advisory which is in place, probably by next week or next 10 days, these travel advisories will be withdrawn. It's a very, most of the government are very keenly watching the situation and trying to see that whether the interim regime is able to enforce law and order mechanism. So once you have peace on the street, I think there will not be the kind of restriction which is put in place now.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our conversation, and thank you very much, Dr. Pattanaik, for enlightening us and our viewers on the entire gamut of India-Bangladesh relations, and especially updating us about the situation in Bangladesh. So thank you very much, viewers. Please share this conversation and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are back with a big bang. This is Strat News Global, and I'm Tripti Nath.